Generation of bodhicitta is the very root of all Dharma practice. Master Padma said, "If you desire to attain the Buddhahood of omniscience, then train yourself in understanding that all ego clinging and fixation on phenomena have no self-nature. No matter what meritorious action you may be involved in, understand that all phenomena are like dreams and magic. In accordance with my oral instruction, train yourself in the emptiness of all phenomena without clinging either to the 6 paramitas or to great compassion. By the power of meditating on emptiness, you should come to realize that the 6 paramitas and the engendered great compassion are also like a magical illusion. Although you meditate on emptiness, make sure that it becomes an aid to virtuous practice and a remedy against your disturbing emotions. Whatever root of virtue you engage in, fuel it with bodhicitta and never be separate from the 6 paramitas. Whatever you then do, always have the intention to increase virtue and decrease misdeeds. Whatever physical actions you engage in, make them virtuous. Whatever words you utter, make them virtuous. Whatever thoughts you entertain, make them virtuous. In short, exert yourself in nothing but wholesome and virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. Shun even the tiniest non-virtue or misdeed. If you do not keep the protection of the armor of mindfulness and conscientiousness, the weapons of disturbing emotions will cut the aorta for attaining the higher realms and liberation. During the 4 kinds of daily activities, it is therefore essential to guard yourself with the armor of mindfulness and conscientiousness. From Dakini Teachings, Shambala Dragon Editions, Padmasambhava's Oral Instructions to Lady Sogyal. This is Darren Littlejohn, and you're listening to episode 53 of the 12-Step Buddhist podcast, Find Your Seed. And continuing with the practices of a bodhisattva, and today is practice number 11. I just wanted to comment on the last paragraph. The armor of mindfulness and conscientiousness are the weapons of disturbing emotions. These will cut the aorta, the main heart valve, for attaining the higher realms of liberation if we do not keep the protection of the armor of mindfulness. We cut ourselves off from the possibility to attain liberation. And it says during the 4 kinds of daily activities, that's sitting, standing, walking, and lying down, it is therefore essential to guard yourself with mindfulness and conscientiousness. So there's no letting up. It's a diligence, and this is one of the paramitas that are referenced. I wrote a book on that, Practicing the Perfections. No, it's called Perfect Practice on Amazon. So getting on to number 11. All suffering comes from yearning for your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the intention to benefit others. Therefore, to truly engage your own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of a bodhisattva. So the seed that we sow reaps the fruit of our effort karmically, and with seeds in the garden. All suffering comes from only trying to please ourselves, is what it says. And perfect Buddhas are born from the intention. So let's talk about the intention. The intention to benefit others. The aspiration, may I? Because what Buddha What Buddha would be in the space of totality, say in the total space of, we might say the total space of Vajrasattva, something like this. We might use terms like Dharmakaya, if you're familiar with these terms. If not, the idea is perfect Buddha, it all encompasses everything. Perfect Buddha isn't limited. The state of Buddhahood, enlightenment, awakenedness, liberation isn't free of the awareness of suffering of being. So in order to have a compassion of great compassion, right, to be able to the capacity to hold that awareness and stay grounded without getting sucked into an infinite number of other people's samsaras, yet to remain compassionate. I mean, imagine the kind of balancing feat of that. What kind of attainment that must be to be in that balance. It's all born from the intention. So we talk about the aspiration, the biju, a seed, the potential for growth and development. It requires the secondary conditions, moist soil, some nutrients, light, moisture, heat. These things are our practice. These are the paramitas, the generosity, the tonglen, as it says here, to truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. These are the tools that we use to bring ourselves further into the path. So these secondary causes, the sprinklings, the environment, the things that we can affect, these are the tools of our trade, of our practice, of the Bodhisattva, which is to benefit others, to think of benefiting others, to purely abandon self and benefit others. This is the suffering. So the seed, the initial idea, and we can start with the seed and we can nurture it, and over time it will develop into something, right? That's the analogy. That's how it works. It's called mind training, and it's called training the mind, and it's called the way to be on the path of a bodhisattva to attain liberation for the benefit of not only oneself, but for all beings. In fact, all beings before oneself. That's the commitment. Our idea here in recovery is to let go of our obsession with self. So the practice is the bodhisattva, to understand what the practice really is, to have the ability to completely abandon oneself. For example, one's child. For me, it's my dog. He was coughing a couple nights ago. He has a collapsing larynx, and I was really tired. There's nothing I can do. I've given him a couple of doses of things. I give him CBD and Benadryl, and it works, but this one was really bad, and he was coughing, and he couldn't breathe, and I was just laying there praying Tara and doing Tonglen. I was truly willing to trade my throat for his, and therefore to truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice. It's the practice. I can't do that very often, but I can do it most easily with my soulmate there. And that's the idea, to abandon oneself, to be on the path. So we start with the seed, and we try to take care of our seed. Speaking of seeds, I was going to talk last week. I mentioned I was going to talk about my writing process, which involves starting with the seed. The idea of compassionate recovery came to me in a conversation. It was a seed. 12-step Buddhist. These things, certain ideas such as a creative project or an idea to do something, like build a dog park. These things, you start with an idea or a feeling, and maybe I just have to let go of it doesn't make sense. I can't really play it out, but you can't cancel it and say, oh, that's not possible. You just got to write it down and return to it later. So go back to just keep a note. I mean, for me, with this newest book, I talked about it in my Uber for 3 years. I mean, literally thousands of people had conversations with me about the topic of compassion, the practices of mindfulness, being in recovery, what it's like in and so forth. So you really got to work out the details of your seed, to get things going into the perfect, or however it's going to wind up to be a fruit. Just got to keep working on it, make note. But you got to kind of learn how to check what that feeling is, where all the tumblers fall into place for a moment. And even though it's not something that you can make manifest right now, maybe it's a really long-term seed. Maybe it's a big, tree that takes 100 years. I don't know. Maybe it's just a longer-term goal for you. But you really want to try to be mindful to that feeling within yourself, of that kind of thing that you really, that's a hunch. It really kind of makes sense. Just work with that and follow it along. So let's just do that practice. Understanding that, I may or may not have the true ability to actually, understand and appreciate the experience of infinite beings, and that's a lot of beings. I can't handle a stubbed toe, or a toothache is really, really hell. So the capacity of a Buddha to be beyond the state of the physical, to be in the space of supreme enlightenment. Imagine, so we try to have such aspiration. It's where we can start. We start where we are. So we try to cultivate that within yourself. And give yourself the opportunity to think about anyone who might be suffering that you have maybe experienced recently, or something that still lingers. And understand the suffering of someone close to you. Someone that you really feel that you can target with this Tonglen exchanging self for others practice. If there's no one at all, you're going to have to start with something. So come up with a being that you can take that. Literally take their suffering. Like, I'm a big being, you're a little being. I can inhale the suffering of the little birdie that my cat brought in a couple weeks ago, and exhale my ability to be free. And that's a little bit more manageable, a little bit more setting yourself up with success, more attainable. But however it works, we really do breathe in with the feeling and the idea of taking it. Look, if I could take your suffering, I'd take it. I mean it. Truly. It says truly in this practice, so I truly mean it. So, let's not play games. I truly mean it. But, if you can't truly mean it at all, and it's really way too hard, then you can have the aspiration. You can start there. But don't just jump. Don't sell yourself short of your ability to really concretely do this practice. In other words, know that it can be done. Know that masters do it. Know that it's the only way to attain liberation. Know that if we don't learn to give up entirely like this, it's like cutting off the main blood supply to our liberation. The perfect Buddha is in this supreme state. It starts with this intention. And the intention is just maybe the faintest aspiration to take the suffering of someone else. This is an unbelievable ask, isn't it? To the average person in America, take the suffering of others. Mention it to somebody in the grocery store, and mention it in Whole Foods, where everybody's doing their thing, and see what reaction you get. Hey, could you take the suffering? Could you take my suffering? It's just a crazy, isn't it, when you put it in context? But it is mandatory. The ability to let go at this level is an absolute requirement. So we must begin where we are. There's no excuse. If it's begin where you are, there's no excuse. Okay? So, this is the sort of the seriousness of the level of the practice, that we would have. We're going to literally do it. I really mean it. Okay. I have been doing this for 2005-ish. I have done it a lot. I have struggled with it. But if you kind of just cut through your own, belief that you can't do something like that, and you just do it, like just jump, just leap, take on the suffering of an ant, give it back your joy. Just work with the energy. This is what the teaching is. This is what the practice is. And, as was in the beginning, opening up our conversation, generation of bodhicitta. This is what we're talking about doing right now. This aspiration to feel compassion for others. And remember, compassion is to feel that connection. It's a little different than empathy. I wrote about this, by the way, extensively in Compassionate Recovery, Mindful Healing for Trauma and Addictions, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Powell's Books, anywhere. Just look, and it's an audio, Kindle, trade paper, and hardback. When I wrote about empathy, the difference between empathy and compassion, why you need to be careful, how to be mindful about that, and avoid that toxic burnout where you have that environmental stress or the compassion fatigue, job-related, burnout, first responders, God bless you all. And I say that as a Buddhist, so you learn to take care of yourself, a little bit in this. You have this aspiration to, the definition of compassion, to want to do something. I am compelled to do something. Okay? So compassion isn't some little word or idea. It's the key to enlightenment. That's what it says right here. We just read it. We're just talking about it. It says this everywhere throughout the Mahayana, throughout all these teachings. Generation of bodhicitta, Sanskrit for compassion, is the very root of all Dharma practice. Wow. Kind of, isn't it? That's kind of abandon oneself completely. So this is just something we can do mentally. A lot of these practices we do mentally. I'm not really going to go get a a cancer blood transfusion with someone or something like that. But maybe people give a kidney, I don't know. But whatever level, the Buddha, offered his body. And as we talked about last week in episode 52, in the Chud practice, we offer the body completely and absolutely. So this is kind of all in the same theme, but we should understand that it's about mind training. It's about consistent practice. It's about working with support and being on the same page. And for me, mostly these days, it's about that, healing process of writing a book that is about the healing that I needed to find and that I couldn't find anywhere for the years and years that I looked. So after many decades, I was able to have that seed come to fruition through several years of secondary causes like sunlight, the sunlight of talking about it, thinking about it, trying to work on it. So whatever the seed is, whether it's of an aspiration to have a little bit or a lot of compassion, or to go beyond that to supreme liberation, or whether it's something that you have a passion about that you would like to inspire yourself by working on it and developing it. First, just believe that it can happen, and you don't have to figure it out all at once. Just put the idea down and give it a try. And then take steps toward your goal. Makes perfect sense. Formula that works for everybody who tries it. And the thing about it is the consistency. You can't just wait until, I think I'll do 5 hours of practice today, and then you don't do it for 3 months. It's really better to do 15 minutes a day. Does that make sense? At any rate, peace out and namaste.